Richard Land is the president of the Southern Baptist Convention's Ethics and Religious Liberty Commission. Land's group is one of the signees in this ad. Mr. Land, good morning.
Good morning.
Let's just begin with the ad here in and of itself. So let me just read part of this. The ad that the Southern Baptist Convention's Ethics and Religious Liberty Commission sponsored says this, quote, "Every American who believes in freedom of thought and religious liberty should be alarmed by the attacks upon the Boy Scouts who have had core convictions about morality for 100 years. I mean, ultimately, this is up to Boy Scouts of America, right, to reevaluate their policy, which we should find out in the next couple of days. So my question to you is, how do you perceive that this organization, to use your word, is under attack, and by whom?
Well, because they have said so. They came and briefed several of our leaders and told us that they were losing corporate sponsors, and they were under pressure from corporate sponsors and from some of the troops, particularly on the East Coast and the West Coast, who wanted this policy changed. And remember, 6 months ago, they completed a 2-year study in which they said that the policy they've had in place for over 100 years was supported by the overwhelming number of the parents of the youth they served. And 6 months later, they're contemplating changing the policy, and what they've said to us and to other religious leaders is, we're doing this under pressure, and we're going to give people basically what amounts to a local option. You can't have a local option of a core conviction.
I understand that. I mean, you say they're doing this under pressure, but the Boy Scouts of America is still the group that is making the choice. You say freedom of thought in your speech. Don't they have the freedom of thought to make their decision as a national organization? And don't these local groups, aren't they also expressing their freedom of thought if they want to allow gay members?
Well, we believe that this is going to be, if they make this decision, it's going to be a catastrophe for the Boy Scouts. 1.1 million Scouts belong to troops that are sponsored by the Mormon Church, by Roman Catholics, by Methodists, and by Baptists. And overwhelmingly, those groups are opposed to this change in policy. This is not a vote that's going to be taken by the Boy Scouts nationwide. It's going to be taken by the Board of Directors. And the Board of Directors have sent people to say to us, look, you know, we're doing this under pressure because we're losing corporate sponsors. Now, yes, we live in a democracy and people can make this choice, but if they do, it's going to be a catastrophe because Baptist Scouts and Catholic Scouts and Mormon Scouts and Methodist Scouts, many of them are going to vote with their feet, and they're going to leave the Scouts. What they're doing is to appease their left coast and right coast appendages. They're cutting out the heart and soul of scouting in the rest of the country.
Richard, let me just take that aside just for a minute and ask you about this, because I know you have experience in these kinds of decisions, and so it was the Southern Baptist Convention, actually, this is back in 2000, basically banning women from being pastors in churches, and so ultimately you allowed the decision to sit with the churches. We now know that there are several senior pastoral positions in SBC churches, so how, when you talk about women or boys, I hear you laugh. Why laugh? How is that different?
Well, we have about 45,000 churches, and we have about 100 that have women pastors. So I think the convention has expressed its will. Our confession of faith is not binding on any particular Southern Baptist, but it's an expression of what we believe the Bible teaches, and the vast majority of Southern Baptists uphold that. What the Scouts are doing is going back on a core value, and they're saying a core value is a local option, and in doing so, they're going to undermine the freedom that they achieved under the Supreme Court decision in 2000. In 2000, the Supreme Court said that the Boy Scouts did not have to have homosexual scoutmasters because their belief about sexual morality was a core value. If you make it a local option, it's no longer a core value, and the courts will revisit this. The New York Times editorial page has already said that if the Boy Scouts do this, they've left themselves vulnerable to lawsuits, and it will not be a local option for very long. The Scouts will be required to allow homosexual scoutmasters in all troops.
Well, the Supreme Court did rule on that decision in 2000, so I'm not sure I follow you there. And when you're talking about the vast majority of
let me explain it to you. They were protected because it was a core value. If a core value becomes a local option, it's no longer protected by the First Amendment.
Do you think, you say the heart and soul of scouting, you say we'll rip out the heart and soul of scouting. Are you saying not allowing gay members is the heart and soul of Scouting?
The Scouts have said for themselves for over 100 years that traditional morality is at the core value of Scouting, teaching them to be morally straight. And now they're going to make it a local option under pressure from corporations and from some Scout groups. A core value is not a local option. When a core value becomes a local option, it's just a preference. And preferences are normally not protected by the First Amendment. Core values and convictions are. And let me say one other thing that nobody wants to talk about, and is that homosexuals, by definition, are attracted to people of the same sex. Now, I'm not accusing homosexuals of being pedophiles, but I'm accusing homosexuals of being what they say they are, attracted to males. How many people that are listening to me would allow their teenage girls to go on campouts and engage in camping activities with heterosexual males?
Homosexuals are no more pedophiles than heterosexuals. You have to look at that.
I didn't say that. I didn't say that. And let me finish what I'm saying.
Go ahead.
I'm saying heterosexual males would not be allowed to be Girl Scout masters. Why? Because they're attracted to girls, to young women. In the same way, homosexual males, I'm not talking about pedophiles, now I'm talking about homosexual means attracted to the same sex. Do parents really want to allow their teenage boys to go on campouts with men who are attracted to the same sex? They wouldn't let their girls go on campouts with men who are attracted to women. This verges on being beyond the realm of the rational. And it's going to lead to human tragedy. It's going to lead to human tragedy, and the human tragedy is going to be, sadly, boys and men who are going to end up in relationships that are going to be tragic.
Again, when I was a Cub Scout, I can only speak from my personal experience. We had dead mothers, obviously the opposite sex of the Cub Scout troop. So.
And also, just finally, when you read the purpose of the boy, hold on,
we're not talking about Cub Scouts here. We're talking about Boy Scouts.
The purpose of the Boy Scouts, when you read, to provide an educational program for boys and young adults to build character. How do you build character in a young boy when other boys who are their friends are not allowed to be part of the group because they are not seen as the same because they are gay?
Boy Scouts have the right to define character, and they define character as being morally straight, and that involves being sexually pure and being a heterosexual. If homosexuals want to have a different organization, then let them form one, not let them try to destroy a 102-year-old one and take away its core values.